As a child, we all long for a hero. As a society as a whole, we search for that leader that can be our hero. But as we mature and as we grow, it dawned on us that the hero is inside every one of us. And in the world's social media, we all start at zero. And slowly we search deep within ourselves to find who we are. And we have that moment of truth where we embrace that the hero that we've been searching for has been there all along. It is living deep inside of every one of us. And we start embracing that journey and we become that hero that we search for.
There we go. We're here. All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to episode 121 of Zero to Hero, presented by J29 Creative Group. Got another awesome hero lined up for you guys today. Her name is Heather Campbell. She is the founder and CEO of CultureQI. So let's go ahead and bring her in. Heather, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, Gino. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, well, thanks for joining us. So before we really get into this, what is CultureQI? What do you guys do? What do you have coming up?
Well, CultureQI is the talent and culture activation company. And if you're asking yourself, what does that mean, Heather? We provide talent management services such as leadership development, team development, and ready to activate talent management programs to help small businesses, mid-sized businesses really build from the bottoms up that high performance culture that they need to be the most successful. I don't, looking at the introduction video, it sounds like you all are geeks when it comes to good leaders with this Zero podcast, and I am one of those as well. And culture is such a critical component of what a leader does, a good leader does, in terms of setting culture with intention and driving it throughout the organization. It really is the underpinning of a company's success. And it's more than just what you say you are, which sometimes people think that they can put some values up on a piece of paper and on the wall and at a ping pong table, and that's culture, right? It's not. It's stories and perceptions and unwritten rules and behaviors, the good ones and the bad ones, that really become an organizational culture. And that's what CultureQI is all about. So we incorporated and launched in spring, late spring of 24. So this is really just year zero. And all the fun stuff's been going on. Partnerships and collaborators, designing the product lines, getting the pricing and packaging put together, all the business development. It's the fun stuff. I love to do that stuff. And then as we look to the coming year, I'm super excited about what we have. We've got our products getting ready to be delivered and starting to get advanced with alpha partnerships that we've established, and then continuing to get more clientele in place. We're also looking at developing out some talent analytic products that will help us become even more of a tech-enabled offering for small businesses and new businesses. And we've also got some awesome speaking engagements lined up, which I'm excited to get out and start talking to business leaders, business owners about the importance of not forgetting the human in the business. So, as I'm sure you're familiar with, so many people seem to only be talking about AI at the moment and everything artificial. And last time I checked, I don't think AI is going to replace your entire workforce anytime soon. It might be happening in some pockets, but you still are going to have to fundamentally deal with humans in all of our quirks and challenges, strengths and problems, and the ones that we encounter every day with our colleagues and our bosses and our team members. And we, I think, more than ever, need to get back to some of those human skills. And that's something I'm excited to talk about in different presentations next year. And then finally, but I think most excitingly, is we are launching a podcast in early January. It's called the Enlightened Work Podcast, and it's with my co-host, Meena Patel. And we are just super stoked to bring this to a broad audience. It's focused on kind of leadership for the everyman, if you will.
Yeah.
And because leadership, like being a hero, leadership is a set of skills and behaviors. They can be learned. So leadership isn't something that's just limited to what title you have, some position or authority in an organization, some sort of hierarchy that's been arbitrarily structured, right? That's not what it's about. It's really about bringing skills and behaviors every day to the relationships and the environments in which you want to influence positively for a positive impact. So we want to make the podcast engaging and educational. So we're bringing in neuroscience and psychology and the best of behavior science to help bring our listeners tips and actions that they can take to be a person of influence and to be a leader in the world to help make it better. So we're super, super psyched about getting that to launch in January.
I love it. I love it. And that's, yeah, I think you're 100% right. From the top to the bottom, everybody in any organization can be a leader, right? I mean, especially if they're equipped with those skills. I think that's something that we talk about at J29 a lot, right? I mean, we're
Awesome.
a smaller company, and everybody has to be a leader, otherwise we don't all move in the same direction. So vitally important. And I love that you're focused on small to mid-sized businesses as well. I mean, it's I feel like with these larger enterprises, it's almost kind of baked in now, right? I mean, they know that they have to, that has to be a focus for them, right? To
Right.
stay that larger enterprise. I think with a lot of small to mid-sized businesses, a lot of times we start with an idea, right? And then that
Yep.
business comes, and then, oh, we need people too, and there's a
Right.
lot of that fill-in that happens, right? And it's not the main focus, so it's definitely something that
It
I think is
isn't.
definitely.
I think people, they want to make their people their main focus, and sometimes they do a really great job of it, but oftentimes you have a really small HR department. You might be lucky if you have one or two. They're focused on, keeping the business out of trouble and a lot of hiring maybe of new
Right.
individuals.
Payroll, yeah. I mean,
And
the everyday functions of
yeah,
HR, right?
right, that stuff, and they don't have usually the time to really focus on building out the talent management and talent development infrastructure that is gonna help that business. And, whether you're at 20 people about to grow to 50, or you're at 100, or you're at 1,000, how do you keep them, right? How do you bring people on into this organization and really facilitate a culture that not only will you get the best work out of the folks within your organization, but they will help you drive the results, the business results that you need. And it's a place where they want to stay.
Right. And not for the ping pong table or the
And
pizza
it's
party,
not for the
right?
ping pong table. No.
Which are great things, right? If you've got a ping pong table or a pool table in your office, fantastic, right? I mean, nobody's hating on that, but that's not all it is, right? And I think there was a point where that was, we've got good culture, right? I mean, that was
Oh
like
yeah.
all that needed to happen. And okay, we work hard and we play hard and everything's good, right? And I think people started to kind of see through that. All right, that's great, but I'm actually so dead I don't even want to play ping pong because I'm
Exactly.
so worn down,
Yeah.
right?
I mean,
So
it really comes to down to behaviors in how you are interacting with your fellow humans,
I love it.
both in micro connections as well as big in events and interactions that you put in place on a larger scale. And the leaders have to know that and learn it, and they got to learn some new skills to be able
Yeah.
to really help facilitate that intentional culture made up of a lot of positive micro behaviors.
I love it. I love it. And if you're somebody out there that's listening to this and thinks maybe, we need to have a chat, definitely reach out to Heather. But
Please do.
before we go any further, Heather, let's go ahead and jump into, I want to talk about who Heather Campbell is. So I'm going to ask you outside of CultureQI, which we've dove into for the last year, right? I'm sure you've made it everything, right, over the last year. But setting that aside, who is Heather Campbell? Tell us your elevator pitch. Who are you?
Well, I probably can't do that without telling a little bit about my work history, right, and my story. So I am approaching 3 decades in corporate, which is crazy to think about that. But my career has largely been in the marketing space, internal, external communications, and then all the developments, business development, learning development, talent development, and then lastly, organizational development. So worked both client facing as well as more in the operational space of businesses. And I've had a span of different types of businesses, from startups to mid-sized practices to high growth tech companies that were, multi thousands of people who were working at that company. And I always, though, throughout my career, I would say the throughput is my desire to really support people's interpersonal relationships and to create environments within the workspace and the workplace that people can thrive in. So whether I was just a leader and I was or even before I was leader, if I was just a team member trying to build team culture, or then become a leader and started to lead those team cultures, and then actually became an executive over all of our strategy and efforts to improve organizational culture. That's really been my through line through that experience. I was really fortunate to spend the bulk of my career, 20 years at Cerner. And Cerner was an amazing breeding ground for so many leaders, but was able to help take that company from 3,000 people when I started to, I think we were 33,000 people
Wow.
when we got acquired. And I'm so grateful for my opportunity there, because I got to incubate new businesses and grow business lines and um, develop hundreds of employees and leaders during that time. And it was time for me to move and to kind of focus more on what was next for Heather. So last year I left that that opportunity, or that company, and really changed my focus to, number one, my 2 kids that are school age. So I have 2 boys, boy mom here, and I've got a 11th grader who was very engaged and busy with not only his studies but club volleyball. So he's an awesome volleyball player. And then I have a 11-year-old who's in 5th grade. So and in these finite school years that we have. And it's when I really started to think about, how do I take my knowledge? How do I take my expertise? How do I take what I know how to do best for companies and make it accessible to small and mid-sized businesses who can't hire a full team and a person to come in and maybe just focus on talent development. So how do I make and package best practices and into products that will help them thrive and succeed?
I
So
love it.
now I'm founder of CultureQI. So that takes me to where I am now.
It sounds like kind of at the core, Heather is somebody that just deeply cares about people.
I would say, if you think about my values, which again, they're not just something that I put up on the
Right.
board, but something I try to lead with. I am very passionate, but I am a service oriented leader who really strives to make a positive impact in the world. And that's really at the core of me, and I think CultureQI too.
I love it. I love it. Now, Heather, when you started CultureQI back in the spring, we had zero social media, right? We're about to launch a new podcast. We've got zero social media presence there yet, right? So talk to us a little bit about what that journey has been from starting the page, right, to, naming it, to getting it up there where we had zero posts, zero likes, zero followers, to where you're at now.
I think coming into this, my social media experience was very personal, right? I mean, I had my Facebook page and my LinkedIn professional page. And I honestly had not dabbled into any of the other platforms much. I'm a Gen Xer, so not a huge fan of the Instagram, and had not even gotten onto TikTok yet, right? So I was pretty new to those platforms. And I knew that I wanted to and needed to get myself comfortable with those technologies. And it wasn't necessarily because that's where I'll find my clients, but I wanted to get comfortable taking my message and thought leadership into new forums that would have broader exposure to younger generations, right? And the folks who spend a lot more time on those platforms. So I just started to experiment, and I started with just my own personal TikTok account, which no one knows the handle to, and got to used and familiar with creating in the app, and what worked and what didn't work in terms of followers. And then when I felt like I got my legs on me a little bit, I created my business account, and through there started to experiment with leadership videos. One of the things I always appreciate about social media is I use it not just to connect with people, but I tend to use it as an education platform. I think it's fantastic for micro learning. And so whether I'm learning about, just how to do something really quickly, or, you know, give me some insight on something I didn't quite know about, that's, I think, a great way to get some micro learning. So that's what I started to structure CultureQI videos around. And sorry, my dog's here
No, you're
barking
fine.
at
You're fine.
something. But I started structuring my videos around micro learning, around leadership, and it's been fun. I legitimately, honestly, am having a blast doing it. Like,
Love it.
I just see them all as little mini experiments, and sometimes I get responses and get a few likes and a few comments out of it. And sometimes I don't, but I'm putting it out there, and I'm learning as I go through the process. And I think we'll get better as we go along.
When you're making social media a better place too, right? I think that's kind of what you mentioned with the micro learning, right? I mean, you're going to get out of social media kind of what you're looking for anyways, but if there's more positivity out there, it's a little bit easier to find those good sides of the platforms for sure. So I appreciate you putting that stuff out there. Now, Heather, every
And
superhero,
again,
go ahead.
I was going to say,
No,
based off our product type, we may or may not find leads out in social media, but that's not what it's about. It is about getting
right.
the message out and making it a better place.
Right. And you never know how. The interesting thing with social media too is you never know who's watching, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, as far as leads are concerned, it may produce one, it may not, right? It may be somebody's child that's watching it one
Right.
day, right? And dad, who owns a business, small to mid-sized business, walks in a room and overhears it. Hey, what are you watching? Right? I mean, it's funny how those kind of intangible interactions with social media can become tangible down the road at some point, and you don't even
Absolutely.
know why, right? It's really interesting. Now, Heather, every hero has a defining moment. What do you think yours is, not only when it comes to your career, but your life as well?
Well, I think that there was actually two converging events that were really defining moments for me. My brother passed away from cancer in about 10 years ago. So it was actually 2014 when that happened. And it was at that time when I was in a new organization that had a really bad culture. At the time, it was hyper competitive. It was very political, and I think a lot of people would just call it unhealthy, and we're calling each other and leaders toxic. And to have, I think, me going through, which was such a difficult experience with losing my brother and the grief associated with that, and to not be in an organization that I felt supported by as a grieving human,
Right.
was really, really hard. And fortunately, I was in a position where I was running all the learning and development of that organization. And I was used to people coming to me and say, Heather, fix this problem with the class, or can you fix this problem with the class? And the problems that they started to approach me with, and the problems that I was uncovering being new in this organization, I knew could not be fixed with the class. Like, these were deep seated cultural, behavioral issues that needed a systemic approach to address and to hopefully change. Um, and so I brought that to the attention of leadership and said, hey, like, what you're asking me to solve and what I'm experiencing here is not good. Like, we cannot achieve what you want to achieve as an organization, with things being current how they are currently. And fortunately, they gave me the position, and they gave me the resources and support and buy-in, and I led a multi-year systemic strategy to improve their culture, and it worked.
That's awesome.
Because of my team and my leaders and all the people that we got on board, we had great successful results. And I left it an organization that is not the same organization that I found it. And I found it in, and it is a place now that I think lead, with caring and compassion, as well as high performance. And it's a place where people can be their authentic selves, going through whatever they're dealing with in life, and still deliver great, great work.
I love that. I mean, and I've been a part of the kind of environment that you've described, right? That high pressure, kind of very competitive, borderline toxic, if not fully toxic, kind of environment. How did you get the buy-in? That's, I think, the main question that I get from that, because obviously in those environments, there's typically a lot of egos that
Yeah.
are that kind of go along with that. So how did you get that buy-in from so many people?
I mean, it wasn't just one thing. It was a multitude of strategies. I would say the science very much supports what the behaviors are that actually lead to effective results in a team. So we led with science. We led with the study that Google did, over multiple years, to study what makes high performing teams, Project Aristotle, and the number one factor was psychological safety.
Hmm,
Of all the things that you could do to put together
right.
and build the primary team, psychological safety was number one. So, with that as the root, it was about, well, what does that mean? And helping people understand, how do you go create psychological safety and trust in an environment? And it required a lot of work, a lot of unpacking, a lot of education and coaching, and um, organizational performance. Um, coaching that we did, and strategies, both infrastructure, tactical strategies, communication strategy. I mean, we worked it top down, bottoms up, and in out. It was lots of different levels, but the leaders ultimately knew it. They saw it, and because they saw it, they continued to fuel my team, our programming, our strategy year over year. And because they could see it in their business outcomes. They could see it in turnover that was reduced. They could see it in higher morale. They could see it in improved client satisfaction and reduced costs when it came to projects. I mean, we had it
Everything.
tied directly to the business outcomes. So they started initially by being bought in by science, and then we were able to show them the results.
I love it. I love it. And it's better financially as well. That's easy to that's
Yep.
easy to keep it going. Yeah, so
Yep.
if you want a high performing team, start with psychological safety. I think that's that's the
That's
foundation there.
exactly
That's
right.
awesome.
It is the foundation.
I love it. Now, Heather, villains have attributes, right? Heroes have attributes. What do you really think are the ones that define more that hero side, right? What do we typically see in heroes?
Well, I'm probably going to throw you for a little bit of a loop here because I was thinking about it and I have what I call my enlightened leadership behaviors. And I didn't want to mess too much with that. And I didn't want them to blur because I do think they might and they could. But what really defines, because I don't think I can summarize it in just a few attributes, but there's a really powerful poem by someone you might have heard of called Chief Tecumseh. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Uh-huh.
So he was a Shawnee tribal leader. He lived way back, like in the late 1700s and 1800s. And he has a really poignant poem that's called Live Your Life, or also Death Song. And that poem, it just perfectly summarizes for me what it is to be a hero. And I don't know how else to say it other than read the poem.
I love it. I love it. We'll have to link that too in the show
You will.
description
It's a
for
little bit
sure.
long. I
Yeah.
don't want to,
No, it's great.
take
Yeah.
time to read it, but
No, I
it's
love that. I love that
it's
you brought that up though. That's so
an
good.
amazing poem.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we'll link that. I'll get that in there for everybody to check out for sure. If you haven't done it, yeah, definitely jump in the comments and take a look there. All right, Heather, last question. This is the one that gets all my heroes kind of in their feelings because they don't like to toot their own horn, but I'm going to ask you to do it. If you had to compare yourself to any superhero out there, who would that be and why do they best relate to Heather Campbell?
So, even though I'm a boy mom, they don't do DC Comics or Marvel.
I love it. I love it.
Like, so I was really struggling with this one. And I mean, they're more into Harry Potter and Percy Jackson,
Yeah.
I guess. But if I were to think about a superhero, I'm not going to think about a fictional character.
Okay.
I'm going to think about um, my great grandmother, who I think she was actually my great great grandmother. I need to make sure I get two greats in there. Um, she got off a ship at 17 years old and landed on the shores of Hawaii and married a man who she had never seen before,
Mm.
gave birth and raised 7 kids. He died 10 years later. And so she was a solo mom trying to make her way in on an island that was strange. Um, I think about my grandmother on that same island who, um, when she was born in the 1910s, was brilliant and intelligent and curious. But at the time, she couldn't be a doctor. Her gender wouldn't allow it. So she became a dental hygienist and she would travel with her tools and her education materials, carrying all of her supplies on the backs of donkeys, believe it or not, and travel down switchback mountains into the valleys of Hawaii, where she would teach, educate, clean teeth, and help the villages and the communities. And then I think about my mother, who had, as the eldest daughter of a Chinese family. I know I'm blonde. I don't look it, but I am. I am part Chinese. She had to come and overcome a lot of just generational trauma. My mother got a master's in psychology, and she really in early child development, and she really did that with the intention of becoming a better model of a mother than what she had seen and what she had experienced.
Mm.
And so as I look at those three women in my history, They're all imperfect, but they are strong, they're resilient, they're determined, they're service-minded, and they are very driven to just make their world and their community a better place. So they're my superheroes.
I love it. I love it. And obviously you're following right along in those footsteps as well. So I love it, Heather. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You have been absolutely wonderful. Anybody that hears this and wants to get a hold of you, wants to keep up with what CultureQI is doing, where can they find you? How can they connect with you?
Well, I think you'll promote the handles, but I'm located on my website where you can access everything, certainly on LinkedIn, have a CultureQI page there. Then we are on TikTok and also on Instagram. And then very shortly, we'll be having handles out for all of our podcasts when it goes live in January. So we have a presence out on Instagram, on TikTok, and then we also have a platform on YouTube where you can access the video of our awesome podcast.
Absolutely. And that's coming in January. So be sure once
Right.
we get in January, get on there, give her a follow, subscribe to it so you can see all the great things that Heather is doing. Heather, thank you again for coming on the show. You are absolutely wonderful. And I can't wait to see what you and CultureQI do.
Thanks, Gino. Thanks for having me. And thanks to everyone who joined.
Hey, are we still live? Hey guys, we're still live. Hey guys, this is Kevin Kwok, founder of J29 Creative Group. So who are we? We're a marketing agency here in Kansas City. We're all about a holistic approach to marketing that builds your brand and nurtures online community. But to be honest with you, you guys don't care.